I'm not straight, right? But like, I always assumed when I was a kid, when you were a kid, there weren't so many letters, you know.
Yeah.
There just weren't so many letters.
Yeah.
Like if you weren't straight, you were gay. When I was a kid, being bi was a joke, right? That if a guy said he was bi, it's because he's secretly gay, and if a woman says she's bi, it's because she's secretly straight. Whatever, it was like a joke. I didn't know about the T, the Q. I was just hearing about the Q. The Q was just coming out, and so I was just gay.
Are you writing for Chappelle now? What's happening? Did we switch places?
Yeah, this is
no, go ahead.
The alphabet people.
My point of view, if I may, is, as you mentioned earlier, about the rollout of these issues.
Yeah.
Right? The civil rights in the 60s, the civil rights movement, the most effective social movement in world history, I've heard it referred to as, which I think is true, was really well managed, you know, it's almost written, thought out, planned. I think the problem now is the rollout with all of the alphabet issues. Is like this assumption that there's nothing unusual about it. When you just sat here and told me when we were younger, it didn't really exist. And I think a lot of times they pretend it did, and that I'm the bigot for kind of being like, wait, what? Which
Bill
I think
Burr Bill Burr has that awesome bit about loving Bruce Jenner as a kid and not being able to say Bruce Jenner anymore, not even able to get to say, not getting to say the words Bruce Jenner.
Yeah.
You have to only say Caitlyn Jenner, but I never got a chance to say goodbye to Bruce Jenner. It's a version of that. It's great. It's like, capture
Kevin
something.
Nealon has my favorite joke, which is, I used to golf with Bruce before he died. And he was friends with Bruce. So, and which is like, I can't say anything because what he's saying is true. So what I'm saying is it's this thing of like this matter of fact, they're rolling out the metric system. We're still on feet and inches, and you're ignorant and a bigot for not going to metric quickly. It's like another example is I still call my sister by Mary Brennan. I don't call her Mary Calkins. I don't call her, it's Mary Brennan. I don't know. It's Bruce Jenner, whatever you want to say.
So there's a huge divide between people that view activism as something that takes place online and people who view it as something that takes place in the world. And I just over years of doing Crooked Media and Pod Save America and these shows, you just learn that when you talk to organizers on whatever issue that are on the ground, they understand what you're saying. They're much more conciliatory because they talk to people. And they view their mission as building a bigger tent and persuading people and helping people understand and getting people involved and getting people to care. You see that, by the way, with Sarah McBride, who's actually taking shit as a trans person for what she has said about LGBT issues.
She's not sufficiently trans enough as a trans person.
That she's in some way conciliatory or that she's given in some way. And that divide is just... There's something that happens to people when they live online. It really pickles your brain, and you're in a closed loop with a bunch of people who agree with you, and it radicalizes people in all kinds of directions, and that's really unhealthy. And so you do end up with people that are kind of doing like language policing, and
politicians are afraid of them.
And you talked about this in your special about
the problem with being liberal is there's no amount of liberal that's ever liberal enough. Like, if there's a bunch of Republicans standing around and someone comes up and goes, hey, I'm a Republican, they go like, come on in. If there's a bunch of liberals standing around and a liberal comes up and goes, hey, I'm liberal, they're like, we'll see.
And like, that is absolutely true. And I'll just say, like, it's a huge fucking problem.
Yeah.
And I feel very proud of like what we've built over the last 8 or 9 years. And I'm proud of the longevity, right? Because things come and go, but we've like stuck around. And as we've done it, we've sort of seen, like when we first started Crooked and Pod Save America, we really defined ourselves against the way the mainstream media was letting people down. Here we are 8 years later. It's like a shell of itself, right? It's basically gone. And like, now what are we trying to do? And what we've been talking about like how to think about the mission as an independent progressive media company is we need to help people understand that the answer to what Trump is doing is as big and diverse and welcoming pro-democracy tent as humanly possible. And to remember at all times that Trump wants, the Republicans want, a left that is angry, divided, embittered, sour, mean, unwelcoming. That's what they want us to be. They want us to be the worst versions of ourselves. Trump is great at turning people into the worst versions of themselves, his supporters and his opponents alike. We have to fight that. And we have to be a fun, raucous party that people want to attend. If we're going to be a movement people want to join. And that means being honest about the ways in which being liberal scolds, which again is a subset of people, is not just unhelpful, it is extremely harmful. And to act like that wasn't a part of what led us here is totally wrong. It absolutely is. And we got to figure out how to fix that brand. That is up to leaders of the party and what they stand for and their policies. But that's also about us as members of this movement to be people that others might want to join, even if they were wrong, even if they voted for Trump, even if they didn't follow politics before, even if they don't have the right words on all of these issues, that like whatever you feel, come on in, the water's fine, you're welcome.
The amount of pushing people forward and accepting people's limitations.
Yeah.
Trans issues being a good one, historically black issues being a clearer one because it's like sort of historic.
Yeah.
Where do you fall on it? Because there is you've got definitely are invested now. And how much is like, do you go, these people aren't ready? And do we need to like make them ready? Do we need to force them to be ready? Because I feel that way. And you can, let me make the question even bigger. Trump's lost once and won twice. Mm-hmm. And he lost to a guy and beat two women. So what I'm saying is like, there's part of me is like, can women win a general election? I'm sure you thought it. It's a dark thought. It's gross. It's et cetera, et cetera. Can Wesley, the guy from Maryland, is Westmore, is he as viable a black candidate as Barack Obama? It's like kind of judging progress, the progress wheel versus like the art of the possible, right? Where do you fall on it? And I'm sure it's complex. And by your initial exhale, I know you've got an answer.
So let's just take the first part, which is when do you push people? When do you trust their limits? I think you have to separate what people's opinions and what they care about. And those are different things. When you call somebody up on the phone or text them or have a focus group and ask them, what do they think? They're going to have a range of views. And maybe you end up with a majority that thinks trans people should serve in the military, but only a minority that thinks trans teens should transition, for example. That might be what you get out of some polling. And so that might lead a Democrat to say, I must embrace trans people being able to serve in the military, but say I have questions about whether or not trans teens should be able to transition. But then you ask that same group of people you just focus group, what are your biggest issues? And actually, it's like, I can't afford groceries and my house is expensive and healthcare is unreliable. And then you think, well, hold on a second. What if there was a politician that was so motivated by healthcare and affordability and the need to build housing that it was in every fiber of their being why they were invested? And someone came to learn that about them. And then that politician went to that person and said, I'm going to make sure your healthcare is cheaper. I'm going to fight every day to build more housing. I'm going to go through walls for you. We disagree on this trans thing. I think trans teens deserve this care. Maybe you don't get that right now, but I'm going to win you over. But don't worry about that because that's not my focus. This is what I'm focused on, the thing that you care about. All of a sudden, that person has so much more purchase on these other issues. So it's not about where do you
Can
push.
you think of anyone who's ever done that?
Well, Bernie Sanders can do that, right? AOC can do that.
Has anyone ever said... I mean, Obama literally said, like, gay marriage.
I believe that marriage is the union between a man and a woman.
I'm not seeing it as whatever his mealy mouth answer.
But I do believe in civil unions.
He can get away with it, as discussed. But what I'm wondering is, like, I agree with you, but I can't think of anyone that does, like, it's not really my biggest concern. I don't think it's most people's biggest concern. I'm going to be the biggest concerns person.
Well, I think there are politicians who try versions of that all the time. Like, that's not what I'm focused on. I'm focused on this. And like sometimes that seems evasive, right? But whatever the specific language is, I'm talking about a person who is building trust with people on the things they care about most, so that however those other issues come up, whether they come up, when they do, they can either say, I disagree, or they can say, like, that's a distraction, if that's what they want to say, or they can try to persuade, right? And say, like, you know what? I hope you'll listen to me on this, because I hope I've built trust on this other thing that you care about, not just in what I've said, but by the way, delivering, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's part of the problem, right? People don't trust Democrats to deliver. And, we can debate whether or not that's fair, that Joe Biden did a lot of really important things to kind of prove that government could deliver, and he didn't get credit for it. It's a lot of issues in the way this stuff is translated to people.
Couldn't speak publicly.
Couldn't speak publicly. Huge problem.
Yep.
Not having a president who could form a sentence.
Look, if we finally beat Medicare,
paid a pretty heavy price for it.
We'll see.
But to me, that to me is what pushing and pulling is about, right? It's not about, like, do you give here, do you not give here? It's like, how do you build credibility where you agree, so that when the time comes, people are willing to trust you on something else. Now, I feel like it was a big mistake after 2016 when a lot of people just said sexism, racism, right? Not just because it put off the hard questions about why Democrats were failing to persuade people, but also because it sends a terrible signal about whether our country will elect a woman to be president. Like, look, 2024 was an incredibly specific election, unlike any we've ever run before. We had a deeply unpopular administration that people held responsible for inflation, helmed by a person who was inarticulate by the end, that the country believed was too old, who had been defended by a party that made people feel as though they couldn't be trusted, in part because it was telling everybody that Joe Biden was up for the job when they saw with their own eyes he no longer was.
Yes.
Kamala represented that administration. And she was enough change to mean we didn't lose 40 Senate seats. She made up a lot of ground that Joe Biden lost, right? But she still carried that baggage. And she was unable, I think, to successfully explain how she would have been different, in part by being, when she's asked the question, she did not have a good answer. Now, that is one question and one answer. And Donald Trump fucks up 40 times a day and still manages to win. And so there's something deeper here about why this was close in the first place and why our country doesn't trust Democrats when it talks about the threat Trump poses or what we claim we're for, right? That's a bigger problem. But I do think to then draw the conclusion that, well, a man beat him, 2 women lost. That tells us more than I'm not saying you're saying that, but I don't believe we know that.
Yeah, no, but I'd like to reiterate, I voted for them all. But what I'm saying is, because I don't even think anyone's going to paint me with a brush, but I'm saying, what if it's not people's priority to have a female president? Do you know what I mean? But in the explanation of that is like, well, then you're a bigot. No, I'm not. I don't. It's not. It's the joke I did on my last one. I'm not a bigot. I'm busy. I don't. But it's not important to me.
But you know what? Kamala Harris didn't make her being a woman, didn't make identity central to any of what she was doing. It came, of course.
This time, yeah.
Well, in 2016,
they still had 4K tape, so it seemed like she just said it.
Fine. But like,
it wasn't tape.
But I'm saying as a candidate, she wasn't saying like, we must elect the first female president. In fact, they very carefully avoided doing anything like that. They put identity aside and made it much more about the threat to democracy and, the economy. Like, it's not like people felt like, why would I vote for her? Having a female president isn't the most important thing. Nobody made that the most important thing. So like, that's not.
But I think the thing that you said about sexism and not even being able to say like, she wasn't a great candidate
in 2016 or Kamala.
Either one, anyone. Joe Biden won great. I mean, none of them been great since your friend. But it's at least you're allowed to say Biden is a mummy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you couldn't say anything disparaging about Hillary because it seemed coded in misogyny, et cetera, which I just think is a bad thing. It's a bad position to put people in because you can't have a real conversation and you can't,
but then it's like, but what are you talking about? You're talking about online criticism, right? Is that what you're saying? You're talking about?
But I'm talking about the general tenor of the argument. But you can't be like, I don't know, she's just not that. She don't got it.
Right. Where couldn't you say? I mean, like, of course people could say that. I mean, part of it going once Joe Biden not only held on too long, not only fails that debate, but also doesn't drop out for several weeks after. right? The idea of having a convention, open convention, a real process is eliminated. She's the person.
Yeah.
And so, no, at that point.
Did you like that? Do you think that was good?
I like.
Not that it was her, that it resulted
So
in
I will
her,
say
but
that
they should have done maybe a primary.
To your point, when we talked about an open process, people there were definitely people online that were like, because you don't want a black woman to have the job.
Right.
Right. Like, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally. Absolutely part of it.
Which, like it or not, seeps in. We can say, like, it's online, but it seeps into your spirit.
I think the way online is real, like we say, online is not real life. Like, it has become much more real life. It matters. I totally agree. And like, that was very frustrating to be like, no, if Kamala is a strong candidate, and I believe she is, then she will be a stronger candidate for having won that process. She starts out with an advantage. Don't you want Kamala to come out of an open process, having not just been given something, but taken something? Yeah. Doesn't that make her politics stronger? Doesn't that give us an opportunity as Democrats to put her campaign on its feet and have a debate that allows her to be stronger when she heads into the general? Like, there are very good reasons for having that process, in part because when and if she became the candidate, she'd have been better for it. But, and there was also other people saying there shouldn't be an open process, not because it was to prevent a black woman from having the job, but because, hey, this will be damaging. We got to get moving. We need a candidate right now. But it was all rendered moot by Joe Biden, who took that possibility away from us. And so once she is the candidate, no, there's no more. We got to help her. We got to do everything we can to help her win. If there's criticism that's productive, great. But like, this is an emergency. Yep. We are put in this position. Everybody should be moving in the same direction, for sure. That's how I thought about it.
I'm with you. It's just an interesting thing where at first I said that you couldn't really criticize them, and your instinct is to say, no, what are you talking about? And then you admit, yeah, it was harder to criticize them.
Well, I'm admitting
just think
that before she was the candidate, I'm admitting that there's some truth to what you're saying.
No, I agree. And I'm not saying it was in good faith that you're saying it, but it is the truth. And what I think I'm interested in the tension that you live in overall, the tension you live in between helping the party and being dead honest. And because that's the knock on the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, is that they're all in the bag for these various interests. And I don't know what I would suggest is the other thing.
You know, I've been watching Vanderpump Rules, and
of course,
which is fantastic. So often there are these just sort of rhythms to these shows, and one of them is somebody gets drunk and says to somebody like, you know, you look pregnant, you're so fat, you're so ugly, God, you wear that dress terribly, and then they're like at some point they'll say like, what? I'm just being honest, right? I'm just being honest, and okay, like you think that
is technically you're being incredibly hostile, yeah,
right, and I think like there are people who view that kind of honesty in politics as like a badge of honor, like a proof of their bona fides, a proof of their integrity, right? Like just ready to jump on Democrats at every turn to show how much of a truth teller they are. And you're right. Like, you're not saying things that I don't agree with or they're mean, but like, I see where you're coming from. Like, that was cringe. That was a bad speech. This is embarrassing. They should be, you know, of course. But like, gotta be productive. And respond. And you know what? Sometimes being a responsible adult and being productive means you don't just spout off even when somebody's annoying you, because you got to work with them. You got to figure out the best way forward. That doesn't mean you don't do hard criticism. Doesn't mean you're not honest. That doesn't mean you don't find your times to make sure that you're moving things in the right direction. But being responsible adults, being collaborative, being part of a big fractious collection of people is building relationships. And in life, in politics, in a dorm, wherever, that means sometimes you tell people, sometimes you focus on what's important and you let some things slide, not because you're being dishonest, but because you're trying to be productive. And you can't spend every day talking about every single thing that annoys you. It's stupid. It's a waste of time. And I think that like that's what it means to be a person in a political movement, in a community. That's what it is to be in a community.
Yeah, and you don't want to be a flamethrower a grenade tosser it's just not. It's interesting because it follows from your personality, or most human personalities, which is like, I want to be not even like in the winner's circle. I just want to be in this society, and you know, you don't want to live in the woods and have to but I'm honest all the time. And it's, you know where it's gotten me? In the treehouse.
Right.
That's the only, because people, I'm so kind of reviled or.
And by the way, and your criticism carries no fucking weight because all you do is criticize because you don't view yourself on the inside with a bunch of people trying to do something together. You view yourself as an outsider. And there, by the way, that's a great role for a journalist. That's a great role for somebody on the outside. If that's what they view as their job and mission, is to be completely outside and critical and like as an observer. Like I respect that. I respect it. It's just not what I view as like like for me, I don't, it's not about being inside. It's like, how do we like, hey everybody.
Yeah, what's the best way?
We gotta win. Yeah. It's an emergency.
Yeah. Hey, you should like and subscribe.